really hope GT makes it, because this might be one of the funner bikes I've tested recently. That's saying a lot considering the price point. What's up, you guys? Mo Awesome from Awesome MTB. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another bike review. Today we have a really special one. So this is a GT mountain bike. So you guys probably saw the news earlier this year. GT was either pausing operation or restructuring. There's a lot of things going on over there. However, a ton of their bikes ended up on closeouts. And when we were talking to our friends at Jenson, they actually were able to pick up a ton of these GT bikes to offer you guys an amazing price point at them. So this thing used to be $3,500 and currently it's $1,899. About 50% off a pretty rad bike, and we figured that you guys had been asking for a lot of budget-friendly bike reviews. So today's video, like I said, under $2,000, $1,899 with the GT Sensor Carbon Elite. Now a little bit about the GT Sensor. So this has 150 millimeters of travel up front, 140 millimeters of travel in the rear. Actually, I have a Marzocchi Bomber Z2 up front with that 150 millimeters of travel, and in the rear we have the Marzocchi Bomber Coil Shock. Now for the drivetrain, we have a SRAM SX 1x12 drivetrain on there. We have a GT dropper post with a WTB Silverado saddle, TRP slate brakes on here, and we have a WTB wheel set on here with Continental Crib Total tires. Now the bike itself has a 65-degree head angle, about a 77-degree seat angle, so the seat angle is definitely on the steeper side. I actually went with a size large test bike in this thing just because I wanted this thing to be a little bit more playful, especially I knew that the weight was definitely gonna be a little bit higher. It is a little on the heavier side, but after testing this bike out here in Laguna, this thing has been a blast to ride. I'm definitely impressed with the GT Sensor out here, and I also am kind of bummed out. I really do hope that GT is able to make it through whatever they're going through, because this is actually a really fun bike to ride, and I actually think there's a lot of potential in not only this platform, but this build itself. But before we hit the trails out here in Laguna and show you guys how this thing rides, I do want to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Jenson USA, for making this video possible.
If you didn't know, Jenson USA is one of the largest online bike shops out there, and they are incredible. They have so many bikes and parts in stock ready to ship to you with same-day shipping. Their prices are incredible, and their customer service is second to none. They are rider-owned and have been around for 30 years, so they know how important it is to not only get the best deals, but also keep the time off the bike to a minimum. So like I said, they offer same-day shipping, and their customer service is backed by gear advisors to help make picking the right item or bike out very simple. And like I said, the prices are insane, some of the best deals in the industry, and they also have a really rad Corona store location that we were able to head in to pick this bike up after ordering it online. In that Corona store location, there are so many insane deals on bikes going on right now, and it's super cool to also have a physical location to complement their awesome website. I know some people are a little bit more comfortable checking out bikes in person, and yeah, that Corona location is absolutely awesome if you ever want to check it out.
Once again, you guys, I can't thank Jenson USA enough. The deals that they have on their website on GT bikes right now are absolutely insane. Amazing customer service, can't recommend those guys enough. We'll put a link to them in the description of this video that also helps support the channel. And with that being said, let's go for a quick ride on the GT Sensor. We've seen the comments. There's been a lot of requests for more budget-friendly options. I think this might be one of the best deals out there. First trail of the day. Let's see how this goes. So far, oh wow, yeah, no, that's definitely a coil shock back there. Very planted, and I'm digging these TRP slate brakes coming through the chunk. Oh my God, this thing is literally a monster, you guys. What? Man, 2025 is such a good year to be a mountain biker. Once again, $1,899, and this thing absolutely rips. This is the first time I've ever dropped in on this thing. It's so stable. Now, it definitely doesn't have the slackest head angle. I can definitely tell this thing feels like it's right around 65 degrees, and there is a little bit of noise coming from that SX SRAM drivetrain back there. However, overall, very impressed by the suspension on this thing so far. Coming through here, let's just huck that. Oh my God, I love coil shocks. Love them, love-hate relationship with them. Obviously an air shock, a little bit lighter weight, maybe a little bit better at pedaling, but I'm gonna have to say it, man, that was an insanely fun first drop on that thing. Coming through here, oh yes. Now I do have tubes in here. This actually didn't get this thing set up tubeless. However, you can set it up tubeless. These Continental tires, they were just a little bit tougher to get off the rim, so I was like, you know what, let's try it with tubes, let's see how it goes. I would say I would like tubeless because I could run a little bit lower tire pressure on there. Cool that once again, $18.99, you can get a tubeless setup on here. That chunk just swallowed by the bike. As I used to work in bike shops, and I remember there was a bike we would push to a lot of people out there when they said, hey, looking for my first entry-level full suspension. It was the Giant Stance. It was a single pivot bike, no dropper post, no tubeless. And I want to say that thing was $1,900. Here we are, that was 10 years ago. Here we are in 2025. And once again, $18.99, coil shock in the rear, solid suspension, 1x drivetrain and tubeless wheels. Great time to be a mountain biker. What goes downhill must go up. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it to you. It's definitely a heavier bike. How's it going, man? Definitely a little on the heavier side. But I mean, that's to be expected. Got a coil shock on here. Got definitely an enduro setup. But the seat angle, I mean, super steep, so it's kind of seat and make your way up. How's it going? Thank you.
How are you?
Have a good one.
You too. Love that hair.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And yeah, so I like the seat angle. Nice and steep. Sit and just slowly make your way up. You're not going to win any races uphill, but it's making its way up. And I actually have the shock open. I don't think there is a lockout on this thing. And honestly, I mean, it doesn't feel like it's bobbing much. Let's throw a little bit of tech in here. Once again, it's just a weight thing, but traction plentiful. And once that steep seat angle, you just kind of sit and make your way up. I am very interested in testing this thing out in a much lighter build, because I feel like this bike has a ton of potential. This frame, at least, you'd be able to do a ton of upgrades to, which is awesome. So solid chassis. Time for another downhill. This one's called Rocket. This top part's super flowy. And something that I'm noticing is that even with the coil shock, this bike still has a good pop in and out of corners. Now into the rock gardens where things get really fun. And oh yes, that coil setup and Marzocchi up front. How's it going, guys? Thank you. Yeah. Oh my God. This thing's living up to the bomber name. This thing is just freaking eating up this rock garden through this last chunk. Oh my God. How's this bike so freaking stable through there? Love the suspension feel. Now this is a size large. Normally I like to go with XLs, but I saw this was a little bit longer on paper. Wanted to try it out. I actually think it feels like a big large. How's it going, man? Oh, no way. I was just messaging him. The truth coming in here. We have the infamous up and over, taking the inside line. No issues. But can we make this? Tech climb right here. Yep, man, you could just sit and spin. You know, this bike is definitely shocking me. Really fun in those corners, but the most impressive thing is the suspension on here. This thing literally feels like a tank, but still has kind of that playful feel just in and out of corners. I'm happy I went with a large on this, because I feel like with the weight of the bike, just making it a little bit more poppy, playful. Let's see how much speed we could generate without getting on the pedals. Oh no, the bike is literally soaking up everything. Oh, we barely made it up that. And you know, that comes from it being a coil shock on there, and this thing just definitely having a priority for traction. Through here, we got a lot of ruts. No problems for this bike. So supportive in the suspension profile, and very impressed by how this thing's tackling these ruts. Oh yes, this thing's so good. We're heading up for a third lap, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything to you guys. I went around this time, skipped Choya. Once again, these Crip Totals, the Continental tires on here, mixed with the frame weight, mixed with the coil shock, you're not gonna win any races. But in terms of just sitting and spinning, you're gonna make your way to the top. And once again, I think with a few upgrades, you can get this thing pretty insane uphill. The trail called Lynx, the more I ride this bike downhill, the more blown away I am at not only the bike and how it handles, but also the build. Loving these TRP brakes. These are the Slades, so more affordable option, but at the same time too, I actually think I might like these more than the Evos that I have on some other bikes, and definitely impressed by them. I could tell that this thing still has such a good pop to it, even though through the chunk it's so composed. That GT really had something dialed with the suspension platform on here. And overall, loving the angles on this thing. It's so stable down. feel like they really nailed the numbers geo-wise. Little step down right here, soaks it up like it's nothing. Once again, you guys, the coil shock on here is insane. And I love how controlled it feels through the chatter. What a great bike. I really hope GT makes it, because this might be one of the funner bikes I've tested recently. That's saying a lot considering the price point. And we are down. Have a good one.
You too.
Just like that, we have wrapped up our time on the GT Sensor. Let's get back to the car and talk about it. All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed that ride on the GT Sensor Carbon Elite. Once again, that was my first ride out here in Laguna, and I took it on all of my favorite trails. The first thing that stood out to me was how capable this bike felt right away. And I felt like I got along with the bike super quickly. It was very user intuitive, and bikes that are easy to ride are always funner to ride, because it just feels like you can kind of unlock the bike's potential a lot faster. And the other cool thing about going fast on this bike is how planted the bike felt out on the trails. Once again, that Marzocchi Bomber suspension setup with that Z2 up front and that coil bomber in the rear, absolutely insane out on the trails. It felt like the bike soaked up all of the big hits, but I was still pretty impressed at how responsive the bike still felt. The suspension definitely feels like it still has a good pop to it. And at the same time too, when big chunk sections came in, it felt like the bike was just able to devour it. And yeah, I was very impressed by the suspension that came stock on a sub $2,000 price point build. The other thing that I really liked about this bike is, once again, how responsive it felt out on the trails. Even though it is a little bit on the heavier side and you do have that coil shock on there, you can tell that the bike still wants to play around. Once again, it's a 65-degree head angle, so it's not too slack. A lot of responsiveness from the front end and a very playful feel from the bike, even given its heavier weight. Yeah, I was very impressed by how playful this bike still felt out on the trails. Another thing that I absolutely loved about the bike was the frame itself. This would be one of those frames that if you were to make the investment and pick up one of these bikes and say you want to ride this thing for a year or two before you make any upgrades, I actually feel like this is a frame that's worth investing in. That's always the tough thing with more budget-friendly full suspension bikes, and actually why I think it's an amazing time to be a mountain biker in 2025. If you had come to me about 10 to 15 years ago when I was working in bike shops and you were to ask me, hey, should I buy an entry-level full suspension for under $2,000? A lot of them weren't really bikes that I would feel comfortable with you spending your money later on upgrading. It was one of those where the frame kind of seemed like it was okay for the stock build to meet that price point, but there wasn't too much potential from the frame later on. In the year 2025, I feel like bikes have come such a long way that the actual frames themselves are super high-end on these more affordable options, and that's always something that you want to look for in the purchase of your next bike is, okay, if I'm going to be buying a budget bike now, I know I want to hold on to it for a few years. Is it going to be a platform that I'm actually going to feel comfortable upgrading certain parts? And this is actually a frame that, man, I actually want to try out the high-end version of this bike because I was blown away by the GT Sensor out on the trails. Now, I will say, me personally, I probably would ditch the Continental Crib Totals. I just haven't gotten along with these tires. I just feel like they don't roll too well, and I feel like the compound is just a little bit off from my liking. I think I would just go back to like max to say a Minion DHF or even an Assegai. I just haven't gotten along with Continental tires. I do love the TRP brakes on here. These are the Slades. There's a ton of stopping power modulation on those things. They actually feel very similar to XT brakes. So yeah, that is something that I would definitely keep on the bike. And also the suspension was super solid. I actually think the Marzocchi Bomber in the front and the coil bomber in the rear actually felt super solid out on the trails. And that's actually suspension I would keep on here. In terms of what I would upgrade, like I said, the wheels are a little on the heavier side. I would ditch the tires. I would put some Minions on there. I would probably put some different handlebars on here. I feel like these alloy GT bars, they get the job done. At some point, I probably would look into upgrading the bars on there. The drivetrain, I actually don't think I would be in a quick rush to upgrade that. I actually think it gets the job done. Yes, the clutch is a little on the noisier side. However, I thought shifting was awesome out on the trails. And yeah, I'm very impressed by the SRAM SX stuff. And yeah, overall, I was actually really surprised by my ride on the GT Sensor. I think this is going to be a solid option for a ton of you. We wanted to turn this video around pretty quickly because we know these things are selling pretty fast. And I do think that if you're in the market for your first full suspension bike, or you have a friend that wants to get into the sport, this is an amazing option, especially if you guys see yourself hitting some bike parks in the summer. I actually would feel totally comfortable riding the GT Sensor in bike parks. Like I said, it has a very stable feel out on the trails, and the suspension on here is pretty dialed. And overall, very impressed by what GT was able to do with this bike. I'm definitely hoping they pull through, because this is actually my first time on a current GT bike, and I was blown away by how this bike felt. Like I said earlier, I do want to try out the higher end version of this build because I love this frame. This would definitely be one of those things I would want to upgrade and just kind of dial in for myself. I love the platform, and I think GT had a solid bike in this thing. Once again, hopefully they pull through. If you guys have any questions about the GT Sensor Carbon Elite, let me know in the comment section. Huge thank you to Jenson USA for making this video possible. And until next time, you guys, ride awesome.